How are you going to guard against the bureaucrats undermining you?
Well, they're going to undermine. Well, I always say so. We have two enemies. We have the outside enemy, and then we have the enemy from within. And the enemy from within, in my opinion, is more dangerous than China, Russia, and all these countries.
You're listening to the Bean Pie Chronicles podcast. So kick off your leather socks and unpin your head wrap. The Bean Pie Chronicles is now on the air.
Assalamu alaikum. Just want to see if you're alive in the house. All praise be to Allah.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Hope all is well. Yes. Welcome back to a new episode of BPC, Bean Pie Chronicles. Hope all is well. Before we get started right quick, just remind you all, please, to remember and like and share, like and subscribe. Don't be a square. Share. You know what I mean? It's 2025, New Year. I know it's a weekend, but we've been busy. So the New Year's already started, and let's say I would say start off with a bang, but that would be insensitive. Let's say it's starting off pretty wild. Right now, there's wildfires tearing California up. It's looking like Armageddon out there. It seems like my man Trump is about to come into this new administration with the country limping on one leg, so to speak. What we're going to talk about today is these events that happened on New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve was started off with two tragic terrorist attacks. As most of you, I'm sure, are well aware, there was one event that took place in New Orleans, individual by the name of Shamsuddin Jabbar, and then there was another situation that took place out in Las Vegas. This individual's name is Matthew Lavensberger. Both of these incidents were carried out on New Year's Day, hours apart. There were a lot of similarities between these events. Both attacks involved members of the U.S. military. On the other hand, in addition to that, they both involved the rental of electric vehicles were used in the attack. So both of these vehicles used rental cars in their attacks. Both men, believe it or not, like I said, not only were they in the military, but they both were stationed at some point in Afghanistan. They both served in Afghanistan, and they both were stationed at Fort Bragg. There are many. That's one of the largest military bases in the country. So, a lot of people run through Fort Bragg, but in spite of all these connections, we're told that, nothing to see here. There hasn't been any official connections made other than those, what we would call circumstantial evidence. So this episode is entitled "The Enemy Within." This term was used plenty of times during the presidential campaign, where Donald Trump alluded to the presence of enemies within, individuals within the government. He was talking about individuals within the government, entities within the government, the deep state that would that were responsible for a lot of the covert and undermining activities in this government. And for all intents and purposes, since his victory and re-election, I think it's safe to say that all hell has appeared to have broken loose. I mean, it's outrageous that at this point in time, these fires, like I said, have taken a swept across California. It's crazy to think that only about 30 days ago, the whole world was on fire based upon the idea that we had been contacted by aliens, spaceships and drones and things flying, unidentified UAPs all over the news. And just like that, we don't hear about UAPs anymore. So the distractions and the media manipulations are coming fast and furious, to the point where these are terrorist attacks that took place on the 1st have almost been wiped out of the public mindset. And so I wanted to talk about these talk about these fires, these wildfires that are sweeping across California. But I did not want to not take a look at these terrorist attacks, because I believe that they're very telling. And like I said, President Trump did allude to the possibility that the enemies within will not go out without a fight. So perhaps those fires may be part of the intentional helter-skelter or dismantling of the infrastructure. And Joe Biden, as we know, within the Ukraine situation, approved the use of long-range attacks within Russia using long-range missiles. A bunch of things that you would think the outgoing administration, understanding that the people have voted for a new direction, would have maintained their policy and not escalated. But so it seems like the decision to escalate has been taken, and we're seeing escalation in it seems like every day there's a new escalation in a magnitude or multitude of different areas. And so I wanted to take a moment and look at this event that happened on the 1st. Before let me get this out of the way. So we at BPC, obviously, we condemn all forms of terrorism, including state-sponsored terrorism. And we also support our veterans, and we want them to get the treatment that they deserve. When it comes to this country, we have a terrible track record of dealing with our veterans. And because 2 veterans were involved in this situation, we want to be mindful that perhaps some of this activity may be due to PTSD and other mental illness issues. With that being said, it's hard to look over the way that the media has handled these 2 incidents. There seems to be a bias towards the soldier that carried out the event in Las Vegas, as opposed to the individual that carried out the events out in New Orleans. Now, both cases remain under investigation, but the media has shown a very favorable bias towards the Las Vegas suspect. Perhaps, the bias is due to the fact that he was the only one killed by his action. The individual set off an explosion within a Cybertruck in front of a Trump hotel, which seemed to be sending a political statement nonetheless, and it was an act of violence. So I think that reaches the criteria for terrorism, but according to the individual manifestos and subsequent emails that have been popping up on social media, he spoke about the need to cleanse the corruption out of Washington D.C. He spoke about anti-gravity technology. He was referencing the drones as being related to China, the Chinese military, and he sounded very much like a typical Trump supporter with anti-deep state rhetoric. He indicated and he explicitly mentioned that his act was not an act of terrorism, but meant to be a wake-up call to bring attention to the issues that he was trying to raise. The media has handled this case almost as like a good guy who may have suffered some mental breakdown. He spoke out about war crimes that he may have committed in Afghanistan and the mental anguish that caused him. So real briefly, let's take a listen to an interview that was done with someone who they said served with him overseas. 1 second, let me get this together.
And I was just flabbergasted. I was left speechless. I couldn't believe it because I really enjoyed the time that I got to spend with him, and I found him to be incredibly competent and talented as a special forces operator. And man, I was floored, to be honest. I didn't know what to do or say.
Anything, and I realize you know, obviously you didn't stay in touch with him over the years, but anything that you remember particularly about his personality that strikes you as particularly kind of hard to wrap your brain around?
Yeah, Charlie, start to finish, categorically, the guy was a great dude. He was fit, he was a good shooter, he was a good communicator. There's 5-6 events that we did in this reality competition show, mostly based around soldier skills, and in every instance, he was seemingly a great person. None of this checks out. On the Special Forces side, he was first a Special Forces communications sergeant, and then an intelligence sergeant, and then ultimately an 18 Zulu. So he went through kind of every single one of the checks and balances. He was a talented Green Beret. And sounds like everybody liked to work with him. So none of this makes sense, and it's so heartbreaking. I truly hope that this is a wake-up call for service members to make sure that we're checking in with each other right now. But
so, I mean, it's clear that the media has gone out of its way to present this gentleman as a soldier, a solid individual. That may have just snapped, and under the circumstances, he is still qualifies under the definition as a terrorist. But I mean, it begs to question, when have you seen somebody who gives a character testimony for a terrorist? Now, let's compare this to the other case where Shamsuddin Jabbar, also a military veteran. Now let's look how the media handled his case. Now, granted, according to the authorities, Jabbar was out to kill as many civilians as possible. According to the authorities, he acted on behalf of ISIS, and his intention and his actions were intended to be interpreted as an act of terrorism. It's interesting to see how the media frames this case, especially in light of the situation with individuals like Luigi Mangione, where out in New York City, where again an individual took the life of another individual. So unlike the guy out in Las Vegas, who he was the only casualty to his action, Luigi Mangione, he's been framed as almost a hero instead of a terrorist. So it's just interesting to watch how the media has been choosing and selecting who is considered a terrorist and who is considered just a victim of their circumstances, as opposed to as being a terrorist. And it's almost it's not unsimilar to the Daniel Penny situation, also in New York City, where someone else, a former military individual, Daniel Perry, ended up choking out a black man, and not to bring race in it, but choking out a mentally disturbed man. So this mentally disturbed individual in this case was deemed by the media to be a menace to society. And Daniel Penny, again, another former military soldier, was acquitted of his murder. So I think at very least we can start to look at the patterns and start to question the role of the media in deciding who has the right to use violence and who has the right to be a victim. This is a very interesting pattern that I'm starting to notice, and all I can say for sure is that we need to do a better job to ensuring the well-being of the veterans, because for all intents and purposes, America has been importing violence all over the world for decades now, in the name of national defense and spreading democracy. And some might say that it's inevitable that eventually the chickens will come home to roost, and that we'd have thousands of veterans living in the street. We have thousands of veterans living in the street under all types of circumstances, underserved, and after they've served this country. And there's a lot of highly trained assets for all intents and purposes, some of whom are suffering from mental illnesses, just in the streets right now. And I think that there needs to be some consideration taken. As a matter of fact, I have another video here. Well, let's pull up with Daniel Panetta making a very similar observation.
Director, are you concerned that you have two individuals, and obviously they are not related as far as we understand them in any way, but decorated military, one active duty? How much does that worry you?
Well, I obviously, as a former Secretary of Defense, I don't like the idea that former soldiers who served well, at least during the time they spent in the military, that somehow there was something that happened that then turned them into terrorists. What that was, we don't know. Look, I don't think there's a direct connection here between military experience and suddenly becoming a terrorist, but I do think that what it means is we have to pay attention to people who have served, who have been in action, pay attention as to whether or not they are potential targets for ISIS to try to inspire them to conduct these kinds of attacks.
We have a situation here, like I said, under the best circumstances. We're talking about, again, the enemy within. And, we all know about, or we've all heard about the Manchurian candidates, where mind control is used to trigger someone into carrying out pre-programmed ideas that have been implanted in their minds. And so a person essentially the idea, the theory carries that using things like hypnosis and other tools, individual can be pre-programmed to carry out activities with ideas and plans being planted in their subconscious, and under the right circumstances, that program can be triggered, and a person will then carry out the pre-programmed ideas without being consciously aware of it. And so I know it sounds like science fiction, and I know it sounds like something that somewhat unrealistic, but there's a lot of evidence to prove or to suggest that these things are possible, and it's something that you might want to consider when, again, like when Trump is talking about the enemy within, because when you hear about the backstory for these two gentlemen in particular, everyone claims that this behavior is unlike them. This is out of character for them. So there needs to be some kind of investigation as to why these individuals are acting so far out of character. They're with having this extensive military backgrounds. So let me play a piece right now to show you how the media is basically handling this Shamsuddin individual. 1 second.
Born and raised in Texas, Jabbar spent more than a decade in the military in HR and IT roles, including a stint in Afghanistan, but in recent years had been divorced at least 3 times and was facing financial challenges and a strain of child support for his 3 children. But something snapped. Just hours before the attack, the FBI says Jabbar posted videos to Facebook where he openly discussed killing members of his own family, but apparently deciding that was not a big enough political statement.
He originally planned to harm his family and friends, but was concerned the news headlines would not focus on the, quote, war between the believers and the disbelievers.
Okay, so what's particularly disturbing about this situation here, especially it needs to be highlighted, especially for myself, the BeanPod community, the African American Muslim. This is first time that I can recall that an African American Muslim has been connected directly to ISIS. According to the authorities, this individual had an ISIS flag in his car. We haven't seen any videos of it. They haven't showed the presence of this flag, so-called ISIS flag, at the scene of the crime. There hasn't been any proof of that, and most of the claims as it relates to this guy have been transmitted or articulated on his behalf by the authorities. And so we need to be mindful that up until this point, ISIS and Islamic Brotherhood and these different type of terrorist movements have been basically isolated exclusively to overseas and to foreign Muslims in particular. And for the first time, as far as I'm aware of, there's been a connection made between African American Muslims and ISIS. And And that will lead me to this next section of this situation. So this individual, Shamsuddin Jabbar, excuse me, he has been linked to ISIS. Fox News sent a reporter to his residence in Texas. I believe he's from Texas, and it was an interesting interview or a report in that it looked highly suspicious. There were many curious and suspicious aspects of this report. Most importantly, that most obviously that the reporter had unfettered access to a crime scene, the home of a suspected terrorist, just days after a terrorist attack. The Fox News and the FBI has come under fire for the fact that this reporter was able to enter a crime scene without just on her own, where she would potentially have contaminated the crime scene. But we're going to take a look at her review, and I want to take a moment and just point out some odd things that stood out to me. First and foremost, let's take a look.
We are here inside the New Orleans terrorist home. You can see that it's been clearly destroyed, the door at least, from the FBI raid yesterday. But if we walk through the home, we see some signs of what he was up to. He had this work area here, lots of different chemicals splayed around.
All right. First thing that I noticed, she said there's a lot of chemicals around. But what I saw here is a bottle of Muslim oil. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. So there appears to be the ubiquitous presence of Muslim oil, so you can't really be a black Muslim without having one of these in your pocket or one of these in your car or your desk drawer. So here's your first hint. She's not going to mention it, but I think this is supposed to hit your subconscious. So now when your coworker or somebody see one of these on your drawer at work, you're going to be tied in. So be careful now. Be mindful.
And different electronics. This is again
crazy.
A work setup. Left receipts. Just very unkempt in here.
Now she said this place is very unkept, and this is supposed to be after a FBI raid. Now I've watched enough crime scene television to know that this is not unkept. And this is not what a typical spot looks like after it's been raided by FBI, NYPD. I mean, these dudes left this place pretty, it looks better to clean it in my office. This is supposed to be after an FBI raid. Carry on.
If we go over here, actually, you can see the Department of Justice documents here, the search warrant, and the property that they recorded here, which seems to be a lot of chemicals. Again, just left in disarray. There's a bedroom back.
This doesn't look left in disarray. This is it looked like a couple of shelves are open. Still have the stuff hanging on the refrigerator, cabinets left open. So I'm not sure what she means by disarray.
Back here, and his.
She thought it. She noticed she didn't go to the bedroom, so she's walking through this place that she's never been in supposedly, and she said the bedroom is over there, so she didn't feel it necessary to investigate what was going on in the bedroom. Maybe there was a whole meth lab or nuclear bomb in there. Who knows? But no, she left. She felt that. I guess she knew where she was going. Let's see.
His collection of religious materials, his Qurans, an open Quran with a passage there, as well as even the Bible here.
Okay, so you get a close-up of the Quran, and she mentioned the verse. So I don't know how she knew what verse this was or what she was referring to, but I mean, this book is open to a very specific page, and we're gonna come back to that. This particular verse that they feel is inspired. It's part of what inspired this man to commit this act of terrorism, but it seems highly unlikely that this thing would just be left open to this particular page all willy-nilly. Again, it's reading stage to me.
But mostly books on Islam and his prayer rug just to the left of me here. And if we go back, there's another bedroom here. You can see he left all these belongings, contact lenses, personal belongings.
Now, granted, remember, she didn't go the other way. She didn't go into the other bedroom, but she's going to go do this heavy investigation in this direction. Let's see what she finds.
Bathroom. This seems to be some sort of workspace, again, with other chemicals here. The light's still on. Some kind of station set up here. We're not really sure what that was for. In, what we can assume was also a bedroom. You can see clothes left here.
Hey now, what do you have here? Your Palestinian terrorist headscarf. I forget the name of it. But come on now. You telling me that this is she just happened to go in this direction. She didn't want to go in the other direction. She went in this direction. Past his Quran, and then his standard issue Palestinian Hamas headband.
You don't find that suspicious? You don't find that suspicious? You don't find that suspicious?
All right, cool.
And just a sign that someone was here up until those last few moments when neighbors said he left just before the New Year's holiday, saying he was done with his lease, it was up, and he was on his way to New Orleans where he would live there. Didn't take any furniture because he said his new home would be for.
All right, so as you can see, that was supposed to be just unscripted, unbiased stroll through a suspected terrorist's home. And I don't know, that seemed completely scripted to me. They had a couple of suspicious symbols that would have basically solidified this person as a devout Muslim. His background says that he was not born Muslim. He converted to Islam at some point, and all we really know is that he spent 10 years in the military, and then additional 5 years in the reserve. So he spent a total of 15 years of his 42 year life in service in the military. So how long was he a terrorist, or how long was he even practicing Islam? We don't actually know, but I don't know. It gives you some pause. Now, they gave you a nice close-up of the Quran, and I read a couple of articles, and the Quran was supposedly opened up to Surah 9, verse 111. So they couldn't go to 9:11 because I guess Surah 9, verse 11. Maybe we'll take a look at what that verse said, but apparently that verse wasn't good enough. So instead, they went to Surah 9, verse 111. And let's see if I can pull this one up right quick, and let's see what this says. All right, so it's Surah Tawbah, and it reads, Allah has indeed purchased from the believers their lives and wealth in exchange for paradise. Okay. They fight in the cause of Allah and kill and are killed. So this is what the media has been holding on to. They kill and be killed. So apparently this individual read this. They kill and are killed. This is a true promise binding him in the Torah, the Gospel, and the Quran. Period. And those and whose promise is truer than Allah's. So rejoice in the exchange you have made with him. That's truly the ultimate triumph. Okay, so I've seen articles that try to emphasize the this verse as suggesting that, I guess, the idea or the words they kill, fight in the cause of Allah. They fight in the cause of Allah and kill and are killed. This is the true promise binding him. So this obviously has, well, maybe not obviously. So let me just say that this verse is the verse before it, or a few verses ahead of it, is talking about hypocrites. This and the people during the time of the prophet that created a mosque, and Allah is warning, the people about this mosque created about hypocrites. And so these verses have nothing to do with essentially killing people, killing innocent people as a reward, and to seek a reward for paradise, as is being used in the media. I've seen it being used in the media to suggest that this would have inspired this individual to commit acts of terrorism. And if that's the case, if he interpreted this verse this way, one would have to ask again, where did he learn his Islam from, and who would have given him this impression? If he read this and came to that conclusion on his own, he was surely mistaken, because this verse talks about the believer dedicating himself and herself to the cause of Allah. So it said Allah has indeed purchased from the believer their lives and their wealth in exchange for paradise. So paradise here is connected to a person dedicating themselves. That's the idea of purchase. The lives, the activity, the lives that you live, your good deeds, your behavior, and your wealth. So you use your wealth and what Allah has provided for you in His service. So your life. So this is about dedicating your life and your resources to the service of God in exchange for your reward. Has nothing to do with terrorism. And it says they fight in the cause of Allah and kill and are killed. So this is again talking about, like I said, the previous verse is talking about the hypocrites. So this is talking about in struggle, in the jihad, in the establishment of Islam, when there are wars and confrontation, Muslims will fight in the cause of Allah. They will be killed, and they will kill for the sake of Allah. And so this again has nothing to do with driving a car down a street, running down and killing indiscriminately innocent people out having a good time. That's terrorism. There's no military strategy. There's no one fighting you, because you said kill and be killed. That means they fight when you're fighting against someone else. This is not about Islam doesn't promote aggression. If you're attacked, you defend yourself, and that's what a fight is. When someone fights you, you fight them back. So this is not at all that type of situation. Okay? And so it says this is a true promise, binding on Him, binding on God. God said that if you dedicate your life and your wealth and your pursuit, your basically your life and your energy to the service of God, that you, in exchange for paradise, you will be rewarded. And this is the promise that He made in the Torah, in the Gospel, the Bible, and in the Quran. So here again, there's no way that a person could take this verse to mean, go out and kill infidels or kill or harm or commit terrorist acts against Jews or Christians, because Allah says here that He is the God of the Torah and the God of the Gospel and the God of the Quran, and He has made this promise to, in essence, if He's the God of the Torah, He has made the same promise to the Jews, and He has made the same promise in the Gospel. So this is what this verse is saying. So any Christian that dedicates his life and his wealth and his resources to God, any Torah, any Jew or Israelite that does the same thing, and God is just saying He's consistent in this promise. And He says, and whose promise is truer than Allah's. So rejoice in the exchange you have made with Him. So any God-conscious religious person would identify with this story or with this verse. This is not a verse that couldn't be properly understood to promote this individual's behavior. So I would say shame on whoever is trying to use this verse to trigger people with the 9/11 reference, and then 2, misrepresent this verse, which any God-conscious person would understand. And then it closes by saying this is truly the ultimate triumph. So, we need to make sure that the Quran is not being misrepresented, that Islam is not being misrepresented, that black Muslims are not being misrepresented and associated with ISIS and terrorism and these international affairs. And not for nothing, if you know the history of ISIS, you will know that the U.S. government has played a role in creating and supporting and financing ISIS activities on the international scene. So again, this needs to be really looked into. If you look at a lot of the commentary or the comments on a lot of the these posts promoting this idea, there are people that are standing up and calling out what appears to be a very blatant and obvious attempt to shoehorn ISIS and terrorism on the American people. And this is my last, I'll pull this up. I believe one of a Republican senator, Randy Fine, he's a piece of work, and I'll share this here. Randy Fine says, Muslim terror has attacked the United States again. The blood is on the hands of those who refuse to acknowledge the worldwide Muslim problem. It is high time to deal with this fundamentally broken and dangerous culture. So this is the type of ignorant statements that need to be called out. This foolish person here needs to be primaried against, and we need to get him out of there. Thankfully, this gentleman here, Richard Grenell, who works in the Trump administration, responded, and he said they are radicals. The radicals must be defeated. Muslims call them radicals too. You are not helping. There's a thing called the First Amendment, which guarantees religious freedoms. Okay, so thank goodness we have some solid people in this Trump administration. Again, Trump spoke about the enemy within, and that first senator, he might be one of them. And so I'm going to wrap it up right now. I'm going to wrap it up with that. We're going to close by, again, let's make sure that our veterans are taken care of. Let's stay vigilant and watch out for the deep state as Trump administration comes into office in these final moments of the outgoing Biden administration. It seems like all hell is breaking loose. As my man Fifth Element said, they're gonna go out screaming. So be vigilant, stay safe, and stay blessed. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Just be. Every song ain't the same. Cause you think it's right still. Wrong, need to change. Yeah. A light point our horizons. Grew in this box, trap divided. Commercials display the products, branded with its spell landed. And foods that cause cancer. We chase lap dancers, looking at strippers for the answers. Our own goods damaged, genocide our own people. And tell you that's how the hood managed to crab in the barrel for new status. Newscasters before the newscaster. Choose savage before you choose family. You say you eating your and your mind's famished after your trials bored at it.
Suspicious.